YouTube. It's up again. We got Nick not Nick Crowley. Patrick CC.
There is more
Death of mainstream?
high-quality content available.
I don't know what this means. Does he mean like death of mainstream, like hip hop? Fuck it. I don't know
ever
why I'm asking. Let's see,
before,
Nick.
and yet most people feel like there is something missing. There was once a time where it felt like we were all on the same wavelength when it came to entertainment.
Damn,
and
that
pop
shit's
culture.
nostalgia right there.
Culture. Everything felt more impactful. Movies were bigger. Music spread further. Famous people were actually famous. Awards meant something. And if there was a shocking story in the news, it was impossible to miss. It was much easier to have your finger on the pulse of pop culture, and it created this bond that we had together as strangers. And we took it for granted, because now that that bond is gone, the world of entertainment, music, movies, shows, social media feels oversaturated, confusing, and dull. I bet most of you can relate to this. How many times these days does someone say to you, "Hey, did you hear about," or "Hey, did you see," and not only is your answer no, but you literally have no idea what they are talking about.
Oh,
Life
God.
wasn't always like that. What we are missing today and for the past few years is a monoculture, which is essentially one culture that all Americans are connected to. Sometimes I even call it the death of mainstream, because nothing really feels mainstream anymore. Every decade had their own version of monoculture that was seemingly easily defined, but what will define the 2020s? Monoculture is dead, and for anyone watching this that's like a teenager or younger, it means nothing because they can't relate to that experience. But literally anyone older than that remembers their version of monoculture and probably misses it because it represents a much more simple time. Every generation before Gen Alpha had limited options for entertainment, and they thought it was a burden, flipping through TV channels saying, "Oh, there's nothing to watch." But now
yeah.
our options are
Hey, nigga, I just put on fucking SpongeBob and called it a day. You feel me? I either put on SpongeBob or I put on. That's if SpongeBob wasn't able to watch, but yeah.
3.7 million YouTube videos uploaded every day, one streaming service with every song ever made, and 100,000 new songs being uploaded every day, dozens of subscription services with thousands of movies and TV shows, a literal endless singular feed of short-form videos that one can spend hours without realizing the time has passed. And despite having access to all of this content, a lot of us feel bored and disconnected from each other. Well, today I want to talk about that feeling like something is missing. I believe it is tied to the death of monoculture. So let's dive into how we got here, where it went wrong, and actually why some of you might consider it to be a good thing. Entertainment has always evolved based on the available technology. The easier it is to consume, the less impactful it is. Movie theater ticket sales had their all-time peak in the US in 1946. Over 90 million weekly admissions were recorded, which means that about 60% of the US population went to go see a movie that year. Now, were movies objectively better in 1946? Absolutely not. There were just less of them, and less entertainment overall. The introduction of television likely slowed down movie ticket sales, but opened up a whole new opportunity for entertainment: cartoons, sitcoms, and of course, ads. You've probably never heard of Spokio, Truthfinder, or Been Verified, but they've definitely heard of you. These are data brokers. Their entire business model is collecting your personal info and selling it to anyone willing to pay. They provide reports like this that have information about you,
I thought he
your
was.
contact info,
I thought this nigga was
address,
fucking doing
your
a sponsor. I
relatives,
was about to
and
say,
maybe
like,
even
what the
car
fuck?
you drive. This stuff isn't just floating around by accident. It's being packaged, indexed, and sold legally right now. Data brokers are selling our private information without our consent. They make no attempt to stop scammers, spammers, or stalkers from buying it. The government does nothing to stop them. These data brokers are literally laughing all the way to the bank, probably paying off politicians, so this continues to remain legal. That's why I started using Aura, who's sponsoring this video. Aura finds the data brokers exposing your info and—
Man, this nigga think he's slick, bro. I'm not. What the fuck? I just fell for a fucking whole minute of that shit.
removed from these sketchy sites. But even television has its limitations. You had to watch the show at the exact time it aired, or you missed it and had to wait for someone to tell you what happened the next day. Or even worse, you had to read this book called the TV Guide to figure out when they were going to air a rerun. Plus, there were only a few channels, so competition for attention was fierce, but that also meant that millions of people were watching the same thing at the same time. With most households operating on 9-to-5 work schedules, the only time carved out to entertain yourself was between 7 and 10. This was known as prime time, and that's when the few good shows were on. Families watched the same things together, and a new episode airing at 8 p.m. on a weeknight could dominate school hallways and office break rooms the next day. Worst case scenario, you could stay up for late night television where Letterman would catch you up on all your pop culture news. We were connected as humans, kind of operating on the same wavelength, and the entertainment added to our humanity. That is, unless you were entirely disinterested from the few available shows and movies, then you had no other options, your life sucked, and you were looking for other forms of entertainment like heroin. But at least back then, it didn't have fentanyl in it. But the way people consumed movies and televisions stayed relatively the same for decades. By the 1970s, 95% of households had a TV in it. And then in the 80s and 90s, there was a massive uptick in available entertainment, like an entire TV channel dedicated to showing music videos, or an entire channel dedicated to showing cartoons. But even with more niche options, primetime shows still dominated pop culture, and Americans still felt a sense of togetherness through a somewhat limited availability. Is music not hitting the same anymore?
Brothers.
Doesn't it feel like you used to have a connection with others based on a shared love for the same music? Well, music had a similar permeating connection to monoculture with a few key differences. For most of the 20th century, music was somewhat of a luxury. Today, for $15 a month, you can get access to every song ever made and 100,000 new ones uploaded daily. $15 used to get you one album, and you had to take your happy ass to a record store and physically buy it. And if the album was in high enough demand, they might not actually have it. And that seems like a dumb thing to say, but in our modern culture, entertainment is never not available to you. These stores often had a strong sense of community and served as a gathering place for music fans. It wasn't unusual for artists to stop in and play mini concerts or sign albums before an appearance in a particular city. When people bought an album, they were now invested. They worked hard for that money. So to get the value back, they actually listened to the whole thing. They even tried to like the songs that they didn't initially like because they paid for it, which ultimately made them appreciate the artistry on a different depth. This uninterrupted focus on the music built a deeper connection from the fans to the artist. Fans had to imagine what their favorite musicians were like based on lyrics, a few interviews, and carefully staged photographs in magazines or posters on their wall. There was a mystique. Pop stars felt larger than life, almost like fictional characters, which is why people would pass out at the mere sight of Michael Jackson. Today we have countless interviews.
No, Michael Jackson was a fucking god. He wasn't no just simple pop star. He wasn't no superstar. He wasn't no Hall of Famer. He was a god. Once in a lifetime art of a man. We will never see, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. We will never see another Michael Jackson in the history of the rest of the universe. We will never see another mother Michael fucking Jackson. Okay? It's just like we'll never see another LeBron James, but that's a different story we'll talk about later.
Endless access to all of their thoughts and opinions on social media. That mystery is gone. Artists are more accessible than ever, and because of that, they feel less special. And since music was basically a luxury, most people didn't have tons of disposable income to buy every release they wanted to listen to, so they typically resorted to listening to the radio or watching MTV. You couldn't just search your favorite Guns N' Roses song and get that instant gratification. You had to turn on MTV and just wait for it to come on, but in the meantime, you were consuming tons of other good songs that made you a more well-rounded music listener. And that was the same predicament for everyone. So at school dances, parties, or clubs, everyone felt connected because the songs that were being played were the ones that everyone had the same access to. A lot of club DJs today still mostly play music from the 2010s, and a lot of people wonder why they aren't playing more modern music. Like, are we all crippled by nostalgia? Well, not necessarily, but when you play music from the 2010s, you can kind of guarantee that everyone in the club is going to know those songs. Whereas today, everyone just listens to vastly different music. What's considered extremely popular and mainstream to you might literally not be considered extremely popular and mainstream to the person next to you. Today, we have unlimited access to every song ever made. When a new song or album drops, it is just right there in your phone. You don't have to talk to anyone, don't have to buy it, don't have to wait. Most of the time, the artist artist is actually begging you to listen to it.
You
Or
honestly don't even gotta
accidentally
pay
found
for
out
premium.
about it. You didn't even want to discover it. Most people have resorted to just letting the algorithm decide what music to recommend to them because it's easier than doing all of the effort I just talked about before. Combine this lack of mono connectivity through music, requiring absolutely no effort to get access to the music, as well as artists not having the star power due to overexposure, and surprise, surprise, music holds absolutely no value to the average casual listener. Once we entered the 2000s, the rapid advancement of available technology caused a dominant monoculture to become more fragmented. TVs were becoming cheaper, bigger, and higher quality. The internet was getting faster, becoming easier to access and navigate. Cell phones were in everyone's pocket. We were becoming more connected than ever, but we didn't realize it was actually going to drive us further apart.
Yes.
In my opinion, 2000 to 2010 was a great sweet spot for pop culture. I would describe today's culture as everything all at once, and the early 2000s was the same, but it was slightly more manageable.
Today's culture
Let's
is
start
absolute
simple.
fucking
Movies.
garbage.
Here's a graph of every movie released per year around the world. You can see the quantity of movies released
Yeah.
remained relatively the same from the early 1970s to the late 1990s, and it just started slowly ramping up in the 2000s before it exponentially exploded. Back then, there was a rhythm to it all. You'd get 2 or 3 massive blockbusters every summer, movies like Spider-Man, Pirates of the Caribbean, or The Dark Knight, which dominated culture for weeks. As fall and winter rolled in, you'd see smaller budget, more experimental, or just simple films rise to the surface. Movies like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Little Miss Sunshine, Juno, and Requiem for a Dream. Everyone kind of knew
I've seen
what
Juno,
was
I've
coming
never seen
and
the
when
rest.
it was coming, and that predictability created a shared sense of anticipation. Even smaller budget films had a shot at becoming massive, and the reason they had a shot was
Holy
because
and
people
Dynamite,
actually
bro.
went to the theaters. Our last peak in movie theater ticket sales was in 2002 when 1.5 billion tickets were sold. But even if you didn't go to the theater, we had these really cool things called DVDs, where you could buy the movie that you missed and watch it at home. And if you didn't want to commit to buying it, no worries. You could rent the film for a few bucks by going to this magical place called Blockbuster. This is a store where you could essentially browse all of the movies that you didn't get the chance to see. You would actually talk to the employee who worked there, and they would give you a recommendation or tell you what everyone else is renting. Sometimes a movie was in such high demand that all of their copies would be rented and you couldn't get it. Imagine that. Imagine any form of entertainment being unavailable for you today. Scarcity created demand, and it made the film more exciting.
That's
It
fucking
made
insane.
you want to watch it more. Most of those crappy yet special early 2000s comedies were the perfect films to pick up at a Blockbuster, and people loved that place. The company earned $5 billion in revenue in 2004. The point is that you and everyone around you had this physical connection with the entertainment and was actively using their brain to choose what they wanted to consume. TV still had a somewhat similar rhythm in the 2000s. Primetime was still valuable airtime. MTV was in its best era, in my opinion, having a plethora of terrible yet oddly captivating reality TV shows and
It's that Jersey
experimental
Shore
series,
bullshit.
while still having their sister network, MTV2, play music videos 24/7. It was one of the most versatile eras for mainstream music, with lyrical rap, crunk rap, rock, emo rock, country, pop, EDM, R&B, and countless other genres in a healthy rotation on MTV and the radio. It was just on the cusp of being overwhelming, but having it all contained on MTV and VH1 made it still manageable to keep up with. Kids were absolutely consumed by Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, and Cartoon Network, which were 3 separate networks that each had 2 to 3 shows worth paying attention to in their respective eras. We still had a healthy separation between our personal lives and our school and work life from 9 to 5, only entertaining ourselves lightly in the morning and in the evenings. We didn't have a phone to distract us from literally every millisecond of boredom. The entertainment options still felt limited enough that you could feel like everyone around you was on the same wavelength. Plus, we were still at the mercy of knowing the schedule of when new shows were going to air. But that started to die when cable companies provided DVR capabilities. You could now record your favorite shows and movies and watch them later whenever you wanted.
I ain't gonna lie, I never recorded. If I missed the episode, I fucking missed the episode. But I would always, if it was like Christmas time, I'd go on AB before it was Freeform. Yeah, I'm older, not that much older. I'm only fucking 19. But I remember back in the day when it was ABC Family, not Freeform. Before it was ABC Family, I would go on the cable and I would look for The Grinch Who Stole Christmas during the Christmas time. It would be like right before I go to school. I would, if it for some reason played while I was at school, I wouldn't record it, but I would look at it. I would scroll all the way down, spend like a whole fucking 3 minutes looking to see when the next time it would play, and it would play at fucking like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So I'd probably be asleep then. But I legit stayed awake just so I can watch that motherfucker. I ain't gonna lie.
It was the beginning of the streaming service era takeover that so many people today loathe. Today, you may feel like you are not as connected to the culture because 1, less people are going to the theaters, and 2, the DVD and TV business has been demolished by streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, etc. Being able to stream anything, anywhere, anytime, all while being alone in your room means there's no anticipation, no excitement, nobody to share the experience with, and therefore, no real reason to watch, which is why you simply scroll and scroll through endless choices, waiting for something to magically grab your attention, waiting for something to give you a reason to watch, but it just never happens. On a lighter note, every now and again, we do have a monoculture moment. I think back to the Barbie movie where girls were excited to dress in all pink and drag their boyfriends to the theaters, only for the guys to immediately after drag their girls to see Oppenheimer, where I'm assuming many of them fell asleep. I think back to Squid Games, where it felt like everyone and their mother was blindsided by this dystopian critique of capitalism disguised as a up game show. As far as films go, it feels like it's only every couple of years where there is a moment that we are all in sync, when it used to be literally all year, every year. I can't even remember the last time music had a monoculture moment. I mean, sure, radio is still kind of relevant. TikTok made popular songs more popular, but there's so much music all over the place all the time that I don't even know what anybody's listening to anymore. For TV, Yellowstone, Severance, White Lotus, Love Island, I mean, they are extremely popular, but can we say everyone is watching those shows? Will
Fuck
those
no.
shows...
My nigga, if you a grown-ass man, you watching Love Island, get a fucking job. I don't give a fuck if your girl forcing you to watch that shit. Take your ass to sleep.
Define this era? I bet there are a ton of you watching that are like, I didn't watch a single one of those shows. The irony of it all is that the death of a unified culture everyone seems to be feeling came with our pursuit to be more connected than ever before, because the adaptation of the internet and social media into our everyday lives was the nail in the coffin for monoculture. By the turn of the century, everyone with extra cash had a computer somewhere in the house. Our parents were using them to basically replace what the newspaper did for decades. As the desktops and internet connection got faster, we looked at forums, chatted through AOL Instant Messenger, played simple flash games on Newgrounds, and even bid on random antiques from eBay. Being connected to random people all over the world was beautiful. You were no longer limited to the thoughts, beliefs, and interests of those in your geographical
eBay used to
location.
sell just
the internet was
antiques.
still
That's crazy.
somewhat difficult to navigate. You know, there was a time when Google didn't have all the answers. You had to check other search engines like Yahoo and my favorite, Ask Jeeves, to find what you were looking for. Videos would take forever to load, the quality was often terrible, and sometimes just straight up didn't work. Using the internet kind of felt like exploring uncharted land. That friction, scarcity, and lack of instant gratification was what made it special. It was worth working for. Today, we just expect things to work. We demand convenience, and we are willing to give up our human autonomy for it. Initially, the entertainment industry as a whole saw the
he's
internet
100%
as a
right.
threat because of piracy. Suddenly, millions of people could download movies, music, and TV shows for free through networks like Napster, LimeWire, and torrent sites, completely bypassing traditional revenue models. Studios, labels, and networks feared the collapse of their business structures, as physical sales and TV deals were at the risk of being replaced. The internet stripped them of control, and for the first time, the consumer had the power to access content without paying a cent. From the consumer's perspective, the logic was simple. Why pay for something when you can get it for free instantly? Piracy wasn't just about being cheap, it was about convenience. Buying a CD or DVD meant going to a store, spending 10 to 20 bucks, and hoping you'd like the full album or movie. Then again, people didn't realize the nuanced value of the additional human experiences they got while consuming entertainment. All that driving to the store, talking to people, limited inventory, sitting on a sticky theater seat, that was all just considered to be an inconvenient cost to getting what you wanted. But you couldn't argue against the value that the internet brought to individuals. It gave everyone a voice, a platform, and endless options tailored exactly to their preferences. And that ramped up significantly in 2003 when MySpace became the first widely accepted platform for social media. By 2005, the platform had around 300 million users and had an estimated valuation of over $10 billion. The platform allowed people to share their personal passions and stories as individuals. If nobody in your real life aligned with your interests, you would be able to find a community of like-minded people online. People started calling random strangers on the internet their friends. They became invested in their lives, wanting to know what they were doing in their geographical location. Your connection to random people around the world started to make you disconnected from those physically around you. Slowly, the digital world began to feel more important than the physical one. As platforms evolved, first with Facebook, then Instagram, and eventually TikTok, the focus shifted even further away from a shared experience and towards personal branding. Algorithms were designed not to connect people as a whole, but to keep you personally engaged, feeding you content you already agreed with or found entertaining. The internet became less of a town square and more of an echo chamber, reflecting only your own tastes, beliefs, and biases back at you, just so you wouldn't click off the app. Social media stopped being about community and became a stage where everyone was the main character of their own story. It made individuals feel more powerful than ever, which could be considered a good thing, but it also created a cultural landscape more narcissistic, divisive, and isolated than any era in history. So the reason why movies, TV, YouTube, social media, and literally all other forms of entertainment don't feel the same is a combination of really complicated nuances. However, with a shift in mentality, you could look at all of this as a good thing. If you are a strong-minded individual, introverted, or just someone who doesn't really care about a sense of community and those around you, you are in the golden ages. For decades, if you didn't fit into the narrow lens of what the mainstream deemed valuable, if you didn't like the biggest pop star, or wear the right clothes, or relate to the 5 TV shows everyone else watched, you were invisible. You had nowhere to go. You were the weird kid, the quiet one, the one who didn't belong. But now, the internet gives you infinite options to find belonging, and literally any interest you may have, no matter how unique it is, chances are there is a niche community where someone like you isn't just accepted, you're celebrated. Do you like wolves eating watermelons? So do 61,000 other people. Do you like stapling bread to trees? So do 335,000 other people. Today, a girl who was once mocked in school for drawing anime characters in her notebook can become a full-time artist with a fan base of thousands or millions. A kid who was laughed at for making weird songs on his cracked BandLab app can go viral on TikTok and then chart on the Spotify Viral 50. A filmmaker with no connections and no budget can put their short film on YouTube and have it resonate with millions of people around the world. These stories were impossible in the monoculture era because the gatekeepers decided what was and what wasn't. Before the internet, independence was next to impossible, and today the gatekeepers have less power than ever. So maybe entertainment feels more chaotic, more overwhelming, and less special. Maybe we are no longer all connected under a simple, easy to navigate monoculture, but there is more opportunity than ever for a small independent creator to get a taste of that success. And for consumers, if you know what your interests are and do not let algorithms decide what you want to watch, and are willing to do the tedious task to actively get outside of the echo chamber that these algorithms are trying to hold you in, and find that one quality YouTuber or that one underrated Hulu series, then you are probably completely fine with today's entertainment climate. Build your own world. Who cares about community? This is your life. Now, I personally go back and forth on my feelings towards the death of monoculture. I don't personally feel drowned out in content. Since I have terrible movie and TV taste, I will watch just about anything as long as there is a decent premise for the plot. As far as music goes, I am totally willing to put in the grind to find my new favorite artist, and I'm actually one of those annoying people who kind of starts to dislike someone when they get more famous. So I actively look for underrated talent, and Spotify and social media makes that a million times easier and more convenient. entertainment. But at the same time, I do miss that sense of monoculture. I play a lot of golf, and when I meet new people, I've had countless conversations that lead nowhere because we have absolutely nothing in common due to being stuck in totally different algorithmic echo chambers. Sometimes the golfers don't even watch golf, so I'm just like, how's the weather? And obviously I'm a creator, so I'm benefiting from a system that was created for me to succeed. And because of my feelings going back and forth, my channel is somewhat a reflection of the lack of and yearning for an entertainment monoculture. My YouTube channel is kind of like a 2000s MTV inspired hodgepodge of modern pop culture. Firstly, I'm reliable, posting every Monday at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And every week we talk about something pop culture related. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's film, sometimes it's internet personalities, sometimes it's a comedian, action sports star, politics. The modern YouTube algorithm wants you to keep making the same video over and over with the same thumbnails and dominate one specific niche, which is why you see so many successful channels being repetitive, because that is literally what works. I try to keep a balance. And because of that, some videos get more views than others, some videos bomb, but I hope you enjoy me
like my
keeping
Pop the
that
Balloon
old,
reaction.
early
Hopefully this
2000s
gets the
variety.
same amount
You
of
can come
views.
to my channel to keep you updated with modern pop culture and feel some tiny slice of that monoculture we all used to love. Also, this was kind of a different style of video for my channel. I usually stick to documentaries that are objective and fact-based, but recently I've just kind of been wanting to switch it up a little bit. So I'll be looking at the comments to see what you guys think about this more conceptual or think piece rant type of video. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Monday.
Yo, W Patrick CC, WVid. I don't know, that monoculture shit. It's pretty insane. I ain't even gonna lie to you. Anyway, like, subscribe. Yeah, we are YouTube.